Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone in. Looks like we have quite a few people on the live session this evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jerry Griffin. I'm the superintendent of schools for Malone Central. And we have been asked by Governor Cuomo to conduct some virtual forums for our parents and also a virtual forum for teachers, which we will do that on tomorrow. I want to briefly go over just some general statements before I jump into the questions. The first session, I went into great detail this morning on some of these comments. The second session, I just gave a brief summary. Tonight, I'll probably go into a little bit more detail again. Again, the purpose of these forums is to talk about our reopening plan for the 2021 school year. As you all know, our schools were closed in March. The school district took the initiative to close schools at first on March 16th, and we closed through April 20th. Many of the districts in our region, this part of the state, did the same thing. Quickly after we made that decision, the governor took over that decision-making power for us, and he began closing schools 2 weeks at a time until ultimately he closed for the rest of the year in May. And closing for 2 weeks at a time caused some issues for us. It was difficult for us to develop any kind of cohesive plan for instruction, just getting through 2 weeks at a time. It would have been easier had we known we were going to be out for the rest of the year early on. But be that as it may, reopening guidance was issued to school districts in mid-July, both by the State Ed Department and the Department of Health. The New York State Department of Health guidelines are the ones that are the most important. And the plans were due to the Department of Health by July 31st. So we did have ours submitted by that timeline. The governor announced in early August that schools could reopen using their plans, but should give parents the option of remote instruction if they chose to do so. And he has since reiterated that statement several times since the beginning of August. We responded to that piece of information by putting a commitment form online and asking parents to select which type of instruction they would like to receive this year. In-person instruction in our schools on a hybrid basis, or 100% remote. And we're asking parents to have that form filled out by this Friday, August 21st. As of tonight, about 10 minutes ago, we've had a really good response rate, and we are almost at 1,500 responses, and so we have about 2,400 students in the district, so that's pretty good response rate. And we're at 30% of you are opting for remote instruction, for a total of right at 436 right now, and 70% for the hybrid model. Our committee that formed the plan was made up of about 60 people, and I can guarantee you that we followed those Department of Health guidelines as well as the State Education Department guidelines with fidelity, 100%, and we took it very seriously, particularly with the areas of physical social distancing, the wearing of face masks, maximum number of people in a gathering, cleaning regimens, and then our cohorting or grouping of students. Just a little housekeeping for you. If I'm not looking directly in the camera, it's because I'm looking at one of the monitors I have around here. I have different people helping me out tonight in remote locations, and from time to time I'll get messages that pop up on the screen. It'll force me to address a certain point or question. So if you see me looking around, that's what I'm doing. We went into this development of the plan with the goal to allow all students in pre-K through 12 the opportunity to have some sort of in-person instruction. Of course, we wanted 100% of our students in the building 100% of the time. But as we read through the DOH guidelines, we're not able to make that happen. And that's why we came up with the hybrid schedule, the 50% of our student body in the building 2 days a week. All districts in our region and across New York State had the same guidelines, regardless of the infection rate for their region. We all had the same rules to work under. And believe me, there's nobody who wants everyone back in our school and on a regular schedule more than me. I want to just talk to you about some perceptions that are out there in the community and just lay those right out for everybody. Some of you heard me say this before. We ran a survey at the end of June and asked parents a number of questions. We asked similar questions on the survey so we could try to glean a pretty consistent pattern of answers. And the first question that I'm going to talk about is, which do you prefer in terms of the type of instruction? At that time, 42% of parents responded, over 1,800 responses. 42% said they wanted full day in person with additional cleaning and safety. 22.5% wanted at home visual distance learning only, remote learning, 22.5%. And 30.2% wanted some combination of in-person and virtual learning, for a total of 52.7% supported some form of virtual learning. And then 5% wrote in their own suggestion or idea. So pretty much it splits right down the middle. So, 52% wanted some type of virtual learning, with 22.5% wanting it completely remote. Then we asked, as a parent guardian, which of the following statements best describes your overall feeling about returning to school? And 39.1% said based on whatever safeguards the district has in place. 27.6% only if social distancing, hand washing, face coverings, and temp checks are strictly enforced. And 10.5% said if social distancing, hand washing, face coverings, and temperature checks are encouraged. So that's the difference between encouraged and strictly enforced. And here's where these percentages start to line up. 15.7% of the parents at that time said they will not return until COVID-19 is gone. 7.2% said they'll only return when there is a vaccine available. So that adds up right up to 22.9%. 23%, which is pretty much in line with that question before. 22.5% wanted at-home visual distance learning only. Then we asked a question with the responses, and we asked for the responses on a Likert scale, which is your ranking, your feeling about something from a 1 through a 5. And we asked about how comfortable you are sending your children to school. 1 being not comfortable at all, you're not sending them to school. And then 5, you're totally comfortable with coming to school. So again, over 1,800 responses to that survey. 17.5% of you rated that a 1, not comfortable at all. 313, that's the raw number. 28.4% said you're totally comfortable with sending it back. Then there were 15.7% of you that rated that question a 2. So on the low end, closer to not comfortable at all. 16.1% rated it a 4, which was close to the very comfortable. And then 22.4% rated right in the middle, a 3. So if you add up those percentages, it comes out pretty consistently. The reason we did all that is because I wanted to figure out what are people truly thinking, not just ask them one question. So we did some informal feedback, some qualitative surveying. We We did a thought exchange where we had people could just go in and just type whatever they wanted to, any thought that they had. And then they could rate each other's thoughts. And we did that for a week. And if you break down that data, it pretty much falls right in line with this. We're pretty much split right down the middle. Some people want 100% in person. Let's go back to school like normal. And some say, no, we're not going. We don't feel comfortable coming back until there's a vaccine. As I've stated before, this kind of aligns with our commitment survey that we've put out, with 30% of you saying you're going to have your students receive remote instruction for this year. And the survey goes until this Friday. So we're of course, I'm checking the survey several times throughout the day. So that's kind of where we stand. So, frankly, it puts me in a really difficult spot, because no matter where I go in the community, people will ask me about this and talk to me about it. And those informal conversations fall right in line with this data as well. It doesn't matter if, and I said this morning, it doesn't matter if I'm at the grocery store or at the gas station, or I'm going for a walk near my house. If people stop me, it's one or the other, one extreme or another. So it was going to be difficult for us to come up with a plan that would make everyone in the community happy, because that's just impossible based on this data that we're looking at. So we looked at it as, we have to just follow the Department of Health guidelines as strictly as we can, and with fidelity. And we have to look out for the best interests of our students' health and safety, and our staff's health and safety in mind. And that's what we did. And we're not stating that this is the end all be all and what we're going to do here on out forever. You'll hear me talk about monitoring our plan over the course of several weeks. We plan on taking a look at how our operations are going at about the 6-week mark, and determine if there's any mid-course corrections that need to be put in place. Are there ways that maybe we could open up a little bit more and bring students in a little bit more? Or do we have to tighten things down a little bit? Have we gotten too loose with some things? And we plan on doing that about every 6 weeks. And we'll do that in a committee format, and we'll be asking for parent feedback as well, and student feedback for that matter, every 6 weeks or so. So we're going to get started with the questions here, and I'm going to go I'm going to answer these questions. I'm going to try to do it in sections by the topic that they came in on. So the first topic is basically health and safety. The first question I'm going to answer: can the kids wear neck gaiters, or does it need to be a mask? The guidance is a face covering that cover both the nose and the mouth. The neck gaiter should be fine as long as it's used properly, but our school health professionals are going to be providing some training for our students and staff, and I'm really going to rely on them to provide that training for our students and staff to make sure that we're using the proper face mask for both students and staff. Can the schools be cleaned starting after classes end on Tuesday and before classes would start on Wednesday? This would allow our students to not miss an entire day of instruction. So there's two things here. We've separated our students into two cohort groups: a Monday, Tuesday group and a Thursday, Friday group. Wednesday's reserved. We're only talking about cleaning here, but Wednesday's also reserved for teachers to have an opportunity to meet individually, meet in a virtual manner, meet with students in small groups, one-on-one, possibly a parent conference. Gives an opportunity for teachers to work together to come up with their plans. There's a lot that these teachers are going to have to plan, because they're going to have some students that are remote in person, and some teachers teach many subjects to many different grade levels. But one of the things we're having is that we're having our cleaners work during the day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And normally they come in later in the afternoon and work through the evening. Well, we need them there during the day. So they're going to be doing as much cleaning as they can throughout the day on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And that Wednesday is really reserved for a deep cleaning day, not only of those typical areas, door handles, bathrooms, railings, but also all of those areas in the classroom that don't get the attention they probably need throughout the rest of the week, like lighting, tops of cabinets, sides of desk. And the idea is to separate the cohorts with good cleaning with hopes of reducing that cross contamination. So, and that same thing would be done through the weekend as well. So anytime a student walks into a room and sits at a desk, we're going to be able to guarantee that classroom and that desk is 100% disinfected, and everything they're going to touch in that room and in that hallway and in those bathrooms are 100% disinfected. That's got to be a top priority for us, which is why we need those Wednesdays. This is something that we're going to continue to monitor throughout the year and see if we need to ramp up that cleaning in a different day or a different manner, or if there's ways that we might be able to speed that up differently. But for now, we're going to take a strict approach and stick with our schedule. You mentioned in this afternoon's forum that if a student has a medical reason to not wear a mask, they may be able to still attend in person. But another time you said that everyone will wear one. Which is it? Okay. It's the intention for all students to wear a mask throughout the day with scheduled mask breaks. I can't get into specifics on this question because I feel like I could get real specific and could potentially identify a particular student. Some students will have some needs based on their disability, potentially with respirator that they might be on, wheelchair bound, that kind of thing. They'll have to work with a director of PPS for alternatives for that type of instructional environment. But I don't want to make it clear. It's the intention that all students will wear a mask throughout the day with scheduled mask breaks. And I went into detail one of the forums earlier on when those breaks could and should be taken, and it'll be at the discretion of the teacher, and it won't be with all students at one time unless that teacher is able to take their students outside and really physically distance from each other, and then they could take their mask down, and they're allowed to remove their mask while they're eating lunch. Next question. Do you think pre-K is necessary during this time of a pandemic? I absolutely do. Pre-K is critical to the success of our students, and we can't stop programs like this during a pandemic, because anytime you stop a program like that, it's very difficult for you to get it back up and running again in the next year. We have to keep our momentum. And any exposure that we can give our pre-K students to any type of instructional environment or just school readiness skills are going to be critical for their success in years to come. We've got a dynamite pre-K teaching staff who are going to care for these kids just like they're their own. And some of our students might be in a remote setting, but I guarantee you these pre-K teachers are going to go way out of their way to make sure that these pre-K students still have a good experience and get a good sound education. So absolutely it's necessary even during this pandemic. With a high possibility of asymptomatic carriers, why wouldn't you be testing all staff and all students just to make sure you knew where the virus is or isn't? We're not a testing site we're a school district. We don't have testing capabilities. We have to refer anybody to one of the testing sites in our area. And The Department of Health guidelines, they just don't call for us to test all of the staff and all of the students. That's just not called for in the guidance. And so we did not include that in our plan. If a student becomes ill, will the parents of that class be informed? We're working on a way that we're going to be able to do that without identifying the student. That, of course, will be sensitive, but we understand the need for that question to be asked. While watching the 9 a.m. forum, you stated that students will be required to wear a mask even at their desk if they are socially distanced. I thought the reopening plan stated they wouldn't have to at their desk. Did this change? I really don't support wearing masks all day, or I work. Okay, so let me clear something up in the reopening plan. The reopening plan was created in a way for it to be fluid, and the reopening plan committee did not get into nitty-gritty specifics on this type of thing, but the intent behind it, after speaking with people who were on the committee, that statement in the reopening plan meant that while a student was seated for instruction, that's the time that the teacher could give a face mask break. You're not going to give a face mask break as everyone's standing up, walking to the playground, and you're all in the hallway. That's not the time to do it. If you're calling all of the students over to a table so they can look at something that might be on a table, or a few kids at a time, and they're up walking around, that's an inappropriate time to give a face mask break. So when they're in the room, seated for instruction, there's going to be times where a lot of time's going to pass, and those kids are going to need a face mask break. And it might be, rows 1 and 3 can have a 5-minute face mask break. Okay, put your mask back on, and rows 2 and 4 can have a face mask break. Might be we're going to send half the students outside with a teaching assistant, or maybe the teacher's colleague next door is going outside, and we could send the kids outside and separate and take a face mask break. If a student doesn't plan to return to school after being sent home, they still need to be tested, or is that only for students that wish to return? We have a reentry plan. It's on page 3 of our reopening plan. So if students wish to return for school, they must be tested before returning. That's the current Department of Health guidelines, and it's laid out in our return to school plan on page 3. Just for clarification, kids can't get dropped off any earlier than 7:20 for elementary and 9:30 for older. FA and middle school students can be dropped off at 9:30, and 7:20 is the earliest they can be dropped off at the elementary. That's correct. What happens to the Malone P-Tech students? Do they take Common Core classes at FA? And if so, will they get a tour of the building before going back to school? P-Tech students will be attending classes at BOCES and the P-Tech program as they have been, and any classes that they need from the home district will actually be provided through remote instruction. And BOCES is going to be able to provide a space for those students if they need to have a space to work on their laptops or Chromebooks for that remote instruction after their P-Tech program ends in the day. Have you considered, or is it an option, to delay the start of school to allow faculty and staff time to adequately plan remote learning, as well as schedules, procedures to make the start of the year the safest it could possibly be? Well, some people that know me know that if you ask me the question, then the answer is yes, I've considered it, because you've asked me the question. I'm gonna have to consider it. So yeah, we considered every possibility. We've considered, like I said, we went into this whole development of a plan of going 100%, and we realized we weren't able to do that. So we've considered this hybrid model, and we feel like we can make this work. At this time, on August 17th, at 6:26, I'm not ready to say that we need to delay the start of school. There's a lot that I want to see happen this week. We have a lot of benchmarks we want to meet as a staff, and we're going to work through those. These forums have been helpful for me because it gives me an idea of what's on your mind. It gives me an idea of what we need to address in our schools and in our communication plan. So we'll continue to keep an eye on how we're doing, putting these plans into place. And if a change needs to be made, then we will make that decision and make a change. But as far as right now, we still plan on opening up in that hybrid model. And we're going to consider every factor that's out there to help us confirm that decision as we move forward. What is the district doing to support our students, faculty, staff with their social, emotional needs in this pandemic? So this is one of the whole entire section of our reopening plan is strictly on the social, emotional learning needs of our students. So we have plans in place to monitor the mental health needs of our students. Our counseling staff take this very seriously, and we'll be monitoring and staying in touch with kids, whether they're 100% remote or they stay on the hybrid model. We do have an employee assistance program for our faculty and staff that does give 24/7 access to all staff, and I send out reminders to the staff constantly on how to access the employee assistance program. Anyone who knows me knows that this issue is the most important issue for me in regular pre-COVID times, and is certainly very important during the COVID times. It was mentioned earlier that 5-day instruction was not possible due to lack of space. Did the board consider renting pods to provide the space necessary at each facility to keep as many students as possible engaged and on site? Even if we had the pods, the ability to space students out and meet the Department of Health guidelines would have been nearly impossible. Some of the pods you're referring to are narrow pods. It would be difficult to have anyone sit in front of one another. You'd have to do all long rows. And the number of pods we would have needed on our campus, I'm not sure some of our buildings would have even had room for all those pods. So no, we did not look into that as a possibility. Will elementary age children be allowed to be dropped off at a home without anyone home with working parents and older siblings being in school still? Currently, our policy states that we need to be able to see an adult at that drop-off site for students in elementary school. And I would ask these people that ask this question to reach out to the transportation department and try to find another way that we could do a drop-off safely in the afternoon for your children. The busing questions were addressed this morning, but there was no clear answer on what to do with children in split households. Really, it's going to be very difficult for us to assign students to a specific seat and a specific bus, and have to switch students from one bus to another depending on which house they're going to. So we are asking parents to designate a pickup and a drop-off spot that can be reliable, that we can put in our plan. And we've asked for you to submit those forms soon. If my elementary age child has a teacher who chooses to teach remotely, what will their class day look like? Well, we don't have this worked out yet. We don't know of all of the staff members who will be teaching remotely. But what we plan on doing is, if there's I'm just giving this as an example. If we had a teacher that had an underlying health condition that needed to work remotely in some fashion, and we have 20 elementary students in that grade level who also have elected for 100% remote instruction, that could be an easy pairing to do for the remote teacher and all the remote students. That's in a perfect world that something like that could be worked out. So we're working on that. We're trying not to. We don't want a situation where we have just a classroom full of students and the teachers remotely somewhere else. We'll have to look at how we're going to do this, and we're meeting as an administrative team this week, and this is one of our top priorities this week, is to work this issue out. I do want to update something. I told you that I'm getting messages from different monitors, and I just received a message, and I want to clear something up before I move on. So if you contact the transportation department, and we are able in our policy to drop off an elementary student if you give permission for that elementary student to be dropped off without an adult in the home, an older elementary student. There are some exceptions that are made for that, but we do need to have a note on file according to our policy. How will it work for substitutes? Will they have training they need to attend to prior to working? All substitutes will receive information regarding new building procedures, and they'll be required to complete the mandatory staff screening questions. You mentioned there was a drop-off time of 7:20, and instruction start time is 8 o'clock. Wanted clarification that I can drop him off anytime in between there as long as he is there before 8 o'clock. That is correct. Anytime between 7:20 and 8 o'clock. Will substitutes be going from school to school outside of the classroom cohorts? We're going to try to contain this as best we can. We have a number of reliable subs, and we definitely have a substitute shortage. So we are going to try to pair up our substitutes with certain schools. We'll be working with them individually, and we'll attempt to provide coverage within the building with the staff we have available, but we will limit their movement in between the buildings, and all of the subs that we're thinking of, I'm sure would be agreeable to this. Can you break down the block schedule system for the high school? This is stressing me out. I'm very confused. What I would ask you to do is, it might be easy for you, it might be better for you to contact Mr. Pelkey at the high school tomorrow, and he can walk you through this, and might even be able to talk specifically about the courses of the student that you're talking to. Another note was placed here on my notes here that we're looking at creating an informational video clip that would walk a high school student through their schedule, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade schedule, and we hope to have that up in the next few days. What will Wednesdays look like specifically for high school students? I understand it's an instructional day, but will it be as the other days where we'll have designated times where we have to sign on for classes like other remote instruction days? So that Wednesday will be designated for small groups, one-on-one instruction, different class meetings. So it may not look exactly like a traditional day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but your teacher might say, yes, that is what you need to do. He or she might say, everyone needs to log in during the second period time block on Wednesday so we can finish up the work we did on Tuesday. But it's also reserved for example, if there's a few students who are really struggling in geometry, that teacher might take a few of his students from all different classes, put them all into one Google Meet and go over certain topics together on that Wednesday, maybe several times and maybe one-on-one sessions throughout the day. Are there some classes at the high school that will be offered for a full year instead of a semester, such as band, chorus, college courses? No, all courses will need to be offered as a block course. However, there are some courses like band and chorus that could have a fall section and a spring section. So there's a possibility. Asking pre-K and kindergarten students to sit at a desk with a mask on all day is mind-blowing. What support are those classroom teachers, students going to be given to help make my child's first experience of school enjoyable? I know it's going to be difficult. And we are just following the guidelines that we've been given. And we want to make our school year as enjoyable as possible. There are some instructional tips out there. Excuse me. I have a timer on my lights. After 30 minutes of no activity, the lights go off, so I have to go out and wave at the sensor. We're going to work on this to make sure our pre-K and K students, all of our students, have an enjoyable experience, especially those first timers. So we want our teachers to work together, come up with some strategies on how we can make wearing a mask manageable for those young people. This is an example where we want these pre-K and K students to be able to still get up and move around, hopefully go outside as much as possible, to take some mask breaks as long as they're physically distanced. So I'm confident that our pre-K and our kindergarten teachers can still provide a very enjoyable experience for those students. But it's something we'll be monitoring. We appreciate that question. If middle school and FA students are moving around for classes, where are they eating lunch? They are eating lunch in their classroom. And at Franklin Academy, they'll either eat their lunch during their Block 1 class or their Block 3 class. And so the lunch will be grab and go from the cafeteria. So you can go to the cafeteria and get your lunch as a small group with mask on and distancing. And it won't be like hundreds of students walking into the cafeteria. It'll be small groups. It'll be done in an orderly manner. And you'll grab your lunch and then you'll go right back up to your block class to eat your lunch. Why are we worried about PE time when kids can run around at home for 3 days a week? Would this be better time used for academics? I think physical education, it could be argued that a physical education class might be some of the most important classes that we take at the high school and middle school and our elementary schools. We value all of our content areas and appreciate their importance. And it is a mandated, just frankly, it's a mandated class by the state of New York. And there are 5 standards that we have to teach. It's not something that we can just say we're not going to teach. So we do have a rigorous plan for our PE staff. They've developed a curriculum for both the hybrid and the full remote learning environments to meet those standards. Want to clear up a question that was asked prior. There was a question about lunch and where will they be eating. So Mr. Pelkey cleared that up for me. And Block 1 or Block 3 classrooms, but it'll be during your Block 2. So you'll have Block 1, Block 2, Block 3. You'll eat lunch during the Block 2, but you'll go to one of those other 2 physical classrooms to have that lunch. How will you monitor participation? Several academic categories provided little to sometimes no instruction to my child. Music, gym, art, library. What will be the guidance to them? Well, first of all, we've had several weeks to think about this and plan for this. Like I said, in the spring, it made it difficult creating plans 2 weeks at a time. As an example, our expectation is clear that all of the teachers in these areas will continue to meet with their students in a remote fashion at the time that they're scheduled to receive that instruction. Those meetings will coincide with journal entries, fitness logs, video entries, and there's curriculum that's established for the students to follow at each of those grade levels. We've got people in place to monitor that this happens, and we'll be constantly meeting with these departments as well as every other department to see if there's ways that we can improve and share good ideas across departments. If my child has to use the recorded lesson instead of live, how will they be given credit for attendance? There's a daily process for a daily check-in for students who are not in person that day. So for some reason, if you weren't able to do the live lesson, and that could be you're at a house with no internet access for that particular day, maybe at a grandparent's house, there'd still be a way that later in the day you'd be able to check in for attendance on that Google Classroom. So I don't want you to worry about that. If a student will be absent from remote learning, should we call the school? It'd be beneficial to call the school. It would be. Or if you're able to, send an email to your child's teacher. That would be very helpful just to know the reason that you're absent, so we're not left wondering what's happened. Section 10 website. I want to go. There's some special education questions here that, frankly, I feel like are getting pretty specific, and I'm probably a little uncomfortable at answering them in a forum. Come close to being able to identify some people involved. So Mr. McDonald has written a letter that I think is going to answer most of these questions, and we're going to post that on the website right in this same section. It'll be general answers to some of these questions that I think would be beneficial, and you could always reach out directly to his office for additional information. The Section 10 website is showing that cross-country meets start on September 10th. Is this correct? The coach said practice will not start until September 20th. Section 10 has asked each of our athletic directors in the different districts to not make any changes to the district team schedules yet. The section will make an overall change to the whole schedule over the next few weeks. Right now, the statement is that sports will begin on September 21st, but it's really all up to Governor Cuomo. He has not stated that we're allowed to do any sports at this time at the high school level. So the New York State Public High School Athletic Association pushed the start date to September 21st to give him some more time to make that decision. And we're watching this very closely. And we hope that there are some sports that are going to be able to be offered sometime throughout the year. I know you've said you're working with the YMCA on after school and remote learning day plans, but is it going to cost working families to send their kids there on remote days? We are working with the YMCA. They're close to being able to make an announcement on their sites and the availability and how many students they can cover. And there are some abilities for financial assistance working through the Y. And there's some other community agencies that some financial assistance could be available. You might be surprised how much could be available to people. Has there been any consideration given to lab credit being offered through career and tech programs at NFEC? For students in that track, there are multiple classes that are rich in science. So there's two things here. If you're in a Regents level science class at the high school, there are certain lab requirements that must be met in class for those designated Regents that's given. If the person that's asking this question is talking about tech credits through the BOCES programs, we do currently offer those to our students on their transcript. So there's two different twists to that question. But if it's a Regents exam course, they'll need to have the lab requirements in the class. Okay, so I've just been notified that the Wise Time Childcare has been posted, I believe, on their website. So thank you for that information. Will libraries still be used due to books changing hands often? Yes, it's our intention with specific safety measures in place with input from the school librarians. The teachers will work with librarians to help facilitate projects and reading in the classroom, and the librarians will work out a process for their individual libraries. So the selection of books or materials are done in a safe way. And it might have to be that some interests are given to the librarian ahead of time for the librarian to collect those materials for a display, but we'll make sure that all of those safeguards are in place. Will there be any field trips or holiday events? We're looking at providing virtual field trips as much as we can, but there's just no way we're going to be able to go on actual field trips this year and still stay within the guidelines of physical distancing and cohorting our students. And then the same goes for holiday events. I imagine you might be talking about parties and concerts or plays or musicals. So no, at this time, we wouldn't be able to host any of those events at a school. It wouldn't be prudent or would not fall within the guidelines for us to do that. Will there be a senior parade at the beginning of the school year? I'm glad this question was asked, actually. This is not a sanctioned school event. I know a lot of people in the community think that the school organizes the senior parade where the seniors drive through town and decorate their cars in the morning. The school has never had any involvement in organizing that parade. That's something that students historically have done. Honestly, in my recollection, probably going back close to 40 years that the students have done that on their own. That is not anything that the school is involved with organizing. So it's hard for me to even comment on whether or not that would take place, because we don't, in terms of the school, there is no senior parade. If they come driving in like that, they should know they need to park in a safe manner and walk into school in a safe and respectful manner as we instruct them every year. But addressed as that. If my child exhibits symptoms like a headache or runny nose, will public health be notified? So there are certain triggers in our plan and it's really, the big one is the temperature of 100.0 degrees, where the school nurse would contact the school nurse would contact the parent and also make a call to public health, and there's certain testing sites in both the north and south end of the county that the child and family would be referred to. I just received an update. There are some duplicate questions coming in the last few minutes that I'm being told that I've addressed a couple of times in previous forums, and both of those forums are located on our website. as well as some additional information. So if you get a chance, please go back through and watch those other 2 forums and see if there's something you've missed. I'm going to scroll back up through here. So at this time, I believe I've gotten through all the questions that are here. However, if for some, let me make a statement here. I am a human, and humans make mistakes. So if I've missed a question, it's not been on purpose, except for, if there was a question that specifically called someone out, or named someone specific, or I felt like was a little needed to go to our special education department, I am referring them over to the Director of Pupil Personnel Services. But if I missed one of your other questions, it was simply an error on my part. And I would ask that you can send me a direct email with your question. And after tonight, we're going to take all of these questions and work as a team. We'll send it out to the subcommittees as well, so our subcommittees can look at these questions and see if there's anything else we need to consider in our reopening plan. And later, we're going to put a new link on the site, another frequently asked questions submission form that you can just go in from time to time and just ask your question there. And there will be several people in the district side of things, from teachers, administrators, myself, different directors, who will have access to that database and can answer it for you. And that will be posted right back on our website in a timely manner. So if I did miss your question over these 3 forums, I apologize. It was not intentional. Just reach out directly to me, or if you go to our website, malonecsd.org, and click on contact, you'll see a lot of other contact information for other people in the district if you think someone in the district could be able to answer your question more specifically. So I'll continue to stay in touch with you over the course of the next 3 weeks before school starts. Our first day for students is September 8th. Our staff returns the week before that for 4 days of training. And it will be a different type of 4 days of training, that's for sure. And I'm not sure what this school year will end up looking like as we move through several months, and what Governor Cuomo might decide to do on his end. I can promise you that we're working as hard as you can, and I'm giving you everything I can as your superintendent. And I've got a great team of people working with me, and we're putting our heart and soul into making sure that we're able to offer an environment that's safe for our students, staff, family, and community, and at the same time offering a sound education in the best way we can, whether it's hybrid or remote. It's not perfect, and not everyone's going to like our plan, as you can tell from the statistics of where people sit in our community and how they feel about this thing. And we're right in the middle of all that. So we're going to try to remain positive and focus on our kids. And we appreciate your support and your cooperation, your flexibility, and your patience with us as we continue working through these different issues. I hope you all stay safe, and from time to time we'll post new videos. I did post a video earlier tonight. It's right near the links for these forums, and it's just a few minutes of me walking around a classroom and showing you what a physically distanced classroom looks like. So go to malonecsd.org and look for that link, and you'll see how difficult it is to physically space desks around a classroom that are 6 feet apart. And we'll do some more videos like that to operationally define and illustrate different things we're going to have to deal with this year. So again, thanks for tuning in. A lot of you tuned in tonight, and we appreciate that support and your attendance and your attention to this very important matter. I'll be in touch. Thanks.